So I've got actually about 5 minutes before two other folks are going to join me up here to talk about what is a Mac admin in 2026. What is this new Mac admin? Um, but I'll go ahead and get started and introduce myself because we're going to do a little Q&A at the end and a little story time, and I want to free up as much time for that as possible. Yeah, so that's me. I'm Mike, co-founder and CEO of Fleet Device Management. Adam and Alan will be up here soon from Thumbtack. And yeah, we're going to talk about the new Mac admin. I'm going to let them talk about Thumbtack, but Fleet, just I'll give you the plug now, and we'll save our minutes. But Fleet is open MDM patching and vulnerability management for every OS, from Android to Linux to, of course, Apple, macOS, iOS, and Windows. And I wrote a little card up because is it any good? I learned this from GitLab. They would, every time they would do a talk, they would say, "All right, is it any good? Like, what's the point? Why should you consider Fleet?" Well, it is 100% open source with hundreds of contributors. One of my favorite parts. You might have heard that Stripe moved 10,000 Macs in 10 days. A leading GPU manufacturer was able to reduce their onboarding errors from 80% of new hires down to less than 1% with Fleet. And one major social media company spends half as much time on maintenance and about a quarter less on licensing. And 5 out of 8 of this year's hottest IPOs have moved to Fleet to manage Macs, mobile and PCs. And yeah, even Gartner acknowledges Fleet's existence now. So there you go. That's why I'm wearing this shirt. All right. Adam, Allen, whenever you're ready, we can kick it off.
Oh, hi. I guess I'll talk about Thumbtack. So for those who don't know, I'm Adam. I work for Thumbtack. This is Alan. He works with me at Thumbtack. And we are a tech company that makes a marketplace app to help you find pros to service your house, a plumber, electrician, all that fun stuff. We service all counties in the United States and hire in Ontario. So if we are hiring and you're in Ontario or the States or Philippines, hey, shoot us up. That's about it for Thumbtack.
Yeah.
We've done this.
And we've done this. But I'll give the more like formal intro for these guys. So Adam is manager IT systems engineering at Thumbtack. And Alan is endpoint engineer, senior endpoint engineer on Adam's team. And Mac admins. So you'll notice there's this trajectory. I'm just gonna. Is this okay, Matt? Is this okay, JD? What I'm doing here? All right. Way back in 2004, there was a fruity little thing called an iMac, and you correct me on these dates, guys, if I got it slightly wrong. I was about like 14 years old or something at the time. And then we meant to steel gray, and now we're in the land of liquid glass. But like along the way, a lot has changed in reality and obviously in technology. So if you look around, there's a lot of Macs at work all over the world, and there's a certain spirit to the people who manage those Macs that's distinct. There's a distinct odor, if you will, a beautiful odor. So what does it mean to be a Mac admin? So when we were prepping for this talk, we brainstormed a little bit about like, all right, what is it about all these people? Like, why are they always a little artsy, right? Why is it that the Mac admins they tend to just be like pretty high agency and they figure things out? So where did this like come from, right? Mac admins fill in the gaps themselves. They're susceptible to change. They're not stuck in the ways of doing things. Well, not always. They tend to be a little bit more open. And they seem to have an easier time adapting to like new ways of working, right? There's all these Mac admins open source repos. There's obviously the Monkey projects, and a lot more that I'm not going to rattle off right now. Swift Dialog, etc., and Nudge. And there's this community that's here now, right? So 100 of us are here in just getting together in Montreal for basically 3 relatively unstructured days. I'm sure it's more structured than I'm making it sound. But the fact that we can just sit here and nobody's trying to like get things from each other per se, that's special. And it's not every community that's like that. So how do we get here? Like, what does it mean to be a Mac admin? So for that, I think we need to look at like the history and also like what's changed in the last 24 years.
Why don't you go?
Hello, everyone. So I think what's changed for me, I'm probably a little on the younger side of the crowd here, but I started kind of, with Jamf, and I have Jamf 300 on my belt, and I have a background of working in education, so managing a lot of actually Windows devices, and we migrated to Macs, and so Jamf came about. And then Intune came through, and we kind of had to look at that just because of cost-saving measures, but there's always been the question of what do we do with these laptops, and how do we kind of manage it? And so Jamf came around, Intune came around, and then Apple started to make a real big splash about operating in the enterprise space. I very clearly still remember reading that report that Jamf put out. I think it was like 2016 with IBM. I don't know if anyone ever read that one, but it was very distinct about how they migrated over thousands of devices, tens of thousands of devices, and that kind of solidified in my mind that like, okay, Apple's here to play now. Before, when I grew up working with the Macs, it was like the cool device, and like this is what I always want to work on, and I really appreciate the design choices that they made. And it's come kind of full circle now that I have a real career managing these devices, and it's kind of wild to me. And now Windows Autopilot released, and we're kind of still fragmented in how we can think about managing devices and what does that look like. I'm about to wrap up a migration to Windows and migrate to Fleet over, so now it truly is. I'm going to be able to manage all my devices underneath one MDM layer without having to switch to Intune or hop back to Jamf or stuff like that. So I think that's a really interesting moment in time, and I do challenge people to think about usability and how we think about managing our fleet moving forward. A lot of people have made that choice to go to Intune. That's okay too, but just think about what it is that you want to accomplish on the platform that you're using. Like, does it make your life miserable that you have to go to, you have 2 open tabs open of different, MDM systems to manage other devices? Because I don't think that's fun, personally.
Oh, did you want to?
Oh yeah, no, we can. We have some presenter notes too, but we have some stories. Yeah, I'll pull them in. We'll just all read them together here in a little bit. But I'll just just to place us on this timeline, right? Like, close your eyes. It's 2002. There's TVs around, and like Jamf comes out, right? It's Casper. Intune hits in like 2010, right? We just talked about that paper with IBM in 2016. Somebody was doing something in 2013 though too. I think there was some action at Cisco happening in 2013. I could have my years mixed up. And then, it's ADE now, but DEP was around, and then like Autopilot is like, hey, Microsoft's like, hey, we need to have, things too. We need like a protocol too. We need zero touch too. And then here we are. You guys had some pretty cool stuff, so I am gonna like pull up your story. Yeah, this is worth it.
I just talk into the mic, guys.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah.
You just pulled it up.
No, it's not. I can't get on my phone.
Oh, okay. All
Yeah.
good.
Thank you for the notes. Okay. I did try to review them, but I have a short-term memory, so I'm like a fish. Um, yeah. So yeah, just to expand on that, my story has began kind of like I was an education guy. We're all full Windows devices, and I was kind of like the first to kind of jump in. Everybody on my team at the school didn't really want to touch Macs. It was like the plague. They're like, don't know anything about it. I don't want to touch it. You go do with it. And so I kind of just jumped forward because I love Macs and I had Macs at home anyway, so why not, right? And like the demand was insane. Like kids like would go on protests, outside the school and things like that because they really, really wanted Macs, and they presented to the board to kind of get there. This is like private school, and so you know when you talk to some of my colleagues or previously, like they there's a very specific way in how Windows admin thinks about administrating. You have SSCM and WSUS, or, and sorry if those terms are triggering for people. Those are dark days, man. Like LDAP and local admin and joining domains and things like that, and waiting for it to restart. Like, there's a very specific way in how you have to operate within Windows, and I think dealing with Jamf at the time and kind of migrating over, it was so freeing to be able to not have to do some of that or most of that. And that was a special time, I think, really. Like if you've ever had to go through that journey of bringing on from a Windows environment and then bringing in Macs, it's quite a fun journey. So I do encourage you to try to seek that out at some point. Yep. So I was the IT guy for Macs. Yeah, and I think Adam wants to talk.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I really noticed, I think I'm the eldest of the three of us, like I was starting in a school around 2006, managing all their devices. It was laptops and labs. And, you look at the Windows side, and Microsoft was giving you this box, which was like, here, this is how you manage a computer. And then Apple, sure, there was Mac OS X Server, but that's not a complete solution. And a lot of the people in this room are the people who took it upon themselves to make those tools that were needed and built them up and built out that community and that tool. And I think that's a large percent of what makes the Mac admin community special and who we are.
Yeah, when you don't have anything, you kind of you figure it out, right? So I asked some more folks too, and I'm going to ask you guys later. I'm going to turn it over to the room, but what changed in the last 10 years, right? Well, actually, so Nick from Reddit, he's like, come on, there's no longer a pile of boot drives, right? Like that's the biggest difference. And Jeremy, I think, had a pretty apt point, which was the introduction of zero touch, like reliable zero touch. Pretty big difference because now you're no longer physically touching like all the things. You may still be, depending on your organization on Windows, but yeah, it was a lot different when you had to touch everything. It's a warehousing problem at the end of the day. So like zooming in a little bit more the last 2 years. So Fleet got onto the scene around 2020, and that's when I really got immersed in this space. I'd been doing computer lab work, I guess, back in like 2010, 2009, some Ghost, Deep Freeze, a little OS X server, like script pushing, that kind of thing. But it was like I was kind of busy with JavaScript for like 10 years. And I came back, and then it was like there's so much more maturity by the time 2020 was here in this space. Obviously, like Jamf had built so much at that time. Intune was already around. And then there was like these real innovative teams who were like, hey, how can I reduce our tickets? How can I like do everything I can to make this as automated as possible and be able to manage all these Macs with like 2 people? And you'll see people managing like tens of thousands of Macs with a handful of human beings. And a lot of that's due to the that ability to just like go automate stuff, go figure it out. And you got to give some credit to the Mac platform too. And of course the iPhone. There's also some people, even back then, that were using infrastructure as code. A lot of people were using Ansible, Puppet, Chef to be able to manage these things, right? Like physical endpoints. And that trend just really started to kind of, I wouldn't say accelerate, but it was growing every year that we've been doing this company. And by about 2024, it became the main focus for Fleet. It was like, okay, how can we make this experience better, right? How can we make this, from the moment you start with the repo, every time you push, how can we make the CI/CD experience better? We really leaned into it. And then right around like November of last year, AI got kind of good enough to use. And I think, no offense if you're using it before, plenty of people were using AI before. I'm a little bit of a Luddite in that way. And I was like, I would keep trying it. And then, man, Opus 4.6 was like, okay, you can really use this now, which I think we've all probably digested in our own way. And then, and then there's like OpenClaw, and all these people are buying Mac Minis. It's been an interesting time for Macs. And this whole time, the Mac share within enterprise and just companies at large is like growing and growing and growing. So what does it really mean to be able to manage a world where you got 15% Macs, you got 85% Windows, but now you have 25% Macs? Now at a company like, imagine any gaming chip company that's now focused on GPUs, right? Think of that transition. Any company that's doing a lot of fresh hiring off the back of an infrastructure that's been around for decades, there's going to be a mixed fleet. And in that mixed fleet environment, whether you're them or you're like, I don't know, Pinterest or something, where you have a finance department with some Macs, you really need to like standardize. And so it kind of begs the question, like, what is endpoint management?
Yeah, so I think just going back, endpoint management is endpoint management is endpoint management is endpoint management. Like whether you're starting an IT or you're CPE or anything like that, you are managing these devices. And so I put this picture up because for folks who don't know, this is kind of trying to reference the ship of Theseus. Greek hero mythology. The only thing you have to understand is like this is the philosophical question that I kind of pose to the crowd, and it's the one where if you replace all the planks on a ship, is it still the same ship? And I think for me, the way I take it is yes. I think how I think about endpoint management and the concept around that is like things have changed, but we're still doing the same thing. Identity management of the device instead of AD binding is now, potentially platform SSO, cloud identity, Okta login, things like that. We're moving away from traditional imaging to, zero touch ADE. That's still, in theory, kind of you're still imaging the device, right? Management of the device, you can kind of say like we're moving away from ClickOps, to GitOps. We're still managing the layer, the MDAM layer. So that's kind of like the idea behind this slide. I wanted to kind of pose that question. Like things have changed super quickly, and I think it will change even more with AI. But at the end of the day, we're still patching, we're still securing the device. We're just using different tools to do the thing that we need to do at the end. So I think it is a philosophical debate. There's no right or wrong answer, but I think that's how I would take it. So love to chat more about that. Something that I've been thinking about. If you've attended the GitOps, there was a slide that Kitsy had made about the L1, L2, L3, L4, L4. That's kind of the layers of how we think about what we're doing. L1 being like imaging, basic, L2, zero touch, L3, stuff like that. And what does L5 mean, and how do we incorporate that with AI? And this is something that kind of keeps me up at night. I've been thinking about it a lot. I don't know how to really deal with it. But you know, when you're managing large fleets and you have all these update rings and things like that, what happens when CVEs can't wait for the rollout and there's like a 0 day and your security team is breathing down your neck and being like, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? How are we gonna do it? Um, and I have some ideas of like how do we leverage that, and there's so much noise out there. Like, what is actually important that we have to do right now, that we need to break the class, and like how do we automate that if we need to? Because threat actors are moving at that pace, they're using it, and we kind of have to play defense on it, which I don't like. So I've been thinking around the idea. This is a very light POC. But it's been ideating in my mind about this, and it's kind of like we have an agent that kind of preps everything, PRs it, and then it calls phones home and be like, hey, there's a 0 day right now for Slack, whatever, we need address. And this is probably the right opportunity to break the glass and just push it out to the entire fleet without breaking the update ring. So that's kind of something I've been thinking about. I don't know how to solve these kind of problems, but I hope that, as a community, we can come together and think of a way to make the better ship, because AI is coming, whether or not we like it or not, and we do have to think about how do we use, the tooling for good.
Yeah, and then just to add the caveat, right? Like even if it's, I think there's been a lot of hype around the vulnerability landscape lately, and even if it's just one little, I have this jacket, right, that I almost wore today, but it's gotten so ripped that I'm afraid I'm gonna like catch it on something and rip it wider, and yeah, I mean that's kind of the state of the vulnerability landscape right now. It's like it's much easier to exploit vulnerabilities quickly from like a POC perspective with AI. You may not get anything out of exploiting it, right? Especially on an endpoint. Like as long as the browser's getting patched, you're probably pretty safe. But the more of those little snags that exist, then the more risk there is that those vulnerabilities can basically combine. So I think as we think about the, I'll come back to this in a second. Oh, there's you were talking about, Alan. Yeah. And I'll go fast so there's time for folks to talk. But yeah, when auto patching becoming table stakes, I think there's a difference from patching those little holes that might join together into a really big hole and let something weird in, versus kind of what Alan was talking about, which is, okay, we've got a real problem. How do we patch it quickly? How do we break the glass? So anyways, yeah, on that note, what happens to the Mac admin if Mac OS catches up with Windows in North America? And I'm going to back up a few slides, but I want to get you guys thinking about that because that's what we'll go to in the Q&A as far as where this is headed. But I'll just mention also the AI thing is like the cool thing about being able to manage devices in a repo, whether you're using Fleet to do that or you've rolled your own solution for achieving that. There's all these advantages, right? You have like history and you can do peer reviews and you can roll back changes to undo things. People make a lot of dumb mistakes, especially me. And that's all cool, right? Mature, makes you more precise, fewer errors. But when you can just kind of like chat to Claude, or by the way, I'll give anyone a sticker if they can name all those little icons down there. Challenge of the day. Anybody got it? Kilo, yeah. Ooh, well done. Everyone gets a sticker. They're at our booth. And yeah, half of Fleet customers are doing infrastructure as code, and I won't get into these levels and stuff. We can talk later about it. But if you think about where we were at on that timeline, 2002, where everything was kind of like, oh, you need a computer? Let's go buy one, to there's MDM of some kind, to we're doing like, conditional access, we're doing zero trust, we're bouncing tickets back at people, we're doing a little bit more self-service work, to full on GitOps, full on infrastructure as code. And really when we say AI accelerated, if you think about it with infrastructure as code, it's just code, right? So you're basically, no matter any way you would use a coding tool like Claude or a Slack bot, you can just do the same thing. So like whatever tools you already have, you can use those within Infra as code. So that's what I mean by AI assisted. I asked Ryan this question too about kind of like where things headed, and he wrote like a real long response, so I'll synthesize it, but feel free to read. Like, that's a real person at a real large company today talking about AI, talking about infrastructure as code on many, many, many Macs, right? Kenny, yeah, Mac admin work feeling more like prompt engineering. This is probably on the extreme end of the scale, okay? But he's right. And if for anyone that was at the workshop yesterday, what you'll find is if you have like Claude set up or if you have a Slackbot set up and you were to synthesize every page of that booklet, if you went through the workshop, into just some bullets, you can one-shot that entire certification course in a single prompt. And I know because I did it live during one of the GitOps workshops in the past. Not saying you should, because then you won't understand what you're learning, but you can, which is crazy. You did?
So as a fun experiment, so full disclosure, I've only been using GitOps and things like that for 6 months. Like in my previous role, I did not touch GitOps. I knew nothing about Git and things like that. So Adam, being the great teacher that he is, taught me everything he knew about GitOps. And so I decided as a fun experiment, because I wanted to take the class, to use everything with Claude. And so I prompted everything, and there were some mistakes. You know, if you check my notebook, I've written down notes on it. But, you know, just resident, yeah. So that slide, and then what Ryan kind of wrote is essentially like it helped me ace the class. And so I am inherently lazy, but I do understand what I'm doing, which is why that kind of balances out each other, I guess, a little bit. And so it did mess up a little bit with the software deployment and some of the YAML stuff, but it got me like 99% of the way, and then I just fixed it myself at the end, right? And I was just kind of doing work on the side because, you know, but the speed in which it accelerated my workflows was incredible. So I thought that was an interesting thought experiment to do. Like, how can I prompt AI this? And maybe because I already have the context, because I learned it all, it was easier and I found the right path. But I think now's the time to kind of, you know, dust off that subscription and take another look at it if you are using GitOps stuff, or if you do have infrastructure as code, or even if you need help with something. If you give it access to certain logs or whatever, it can help. So I'm not saying to use it all, but I'm just saying that it was an interesting experiment, and I definitely aced the class. I got, you know, 80% for Claude, but, you know, 100% for me.
Cool. Yeah. So where is this all headed? I think that there's going to be, I think it's, challenge me on this too when we get to the questions if you think I'm wrong, but I don't think we're at the point where AI is going to just decide what to do and just do it to our computers this year. Not without someone approving it, right? Like, I mean, you guys, again, challenge me on it. I see a raised eyebrow over there. Because you can have it review the pull requests and merge requests for the GitLab people, and you can even have it create the pull requests, of course. A human's creating them. That much I know is awesome. That much we've been managing internal IT with at Fleet. We have customers doing that. It's just like writing it by hand. It's just you're using a little helper, and then you're checking it because it's wrong sometimes. So in that world, the Mac admin, the high agency individual, right, in everywhere where we work, that's probably the person who's going to adopt this stuff first. They're going to help their team move the fastest first. They're going to be the most kind of a lever, right, to the efficiency of the organization first, because they've had to be for the last 20 years. So if you imagine a world where Mac OS is 45%, 49% of enterprise use in like North America, what happens to us, right? And I saw this from Gilbert, and he gave me permission to post this, but this is a guy who's talking a lot like a Mac admin, right? Yeah. Yes. But you don't see the words Microsoft MVP, right? Always in the same sentence as some of these ideas. And so when you think about who is the new Mac admin, I think it's people like Gilbert. So that's it. What would you guys say is the biggest change for you in the last, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 years? Thanks, guys. Enjoy the conference.